It's America, man.
Yeah, you go fucking get a lot of food and the damn thing still won't work.
If you walk through the garden, you better watch your back. Well, I beg your pardon, walk a straight and narrow track. If you walk with Jesus, he'll save your soul. You gotta keep the devil down in the hole. All the angels sing about Jesus' mighty soul, and they shield you with their wings, keep you close to the Lord. Don't pay heed to temptation, or your hands are so cold. You gotta keep the devil way down in the hole. Way down in the hole, way down in the hole, way down in the hole, way down in the hole.
Alright, y'all, what is going on? This is your man L. Jamal coming through with another edition of Upon Further Review. Of course, this is where I like to do my reviews. Today I got a little bit something different for you guys. This is going to be a versus type situation. And today I got the Godfather series from the PS2, also the Xbox, the Wii, and the PS3 as well, facing off against the Mafia series from the PC and the PS4. And this is done in commemoration of the release of the definitive edition of the original Mafia series, basically a remaster of the original. And this was actually, I didn't even find out about this until I started doing this project, but just because I had already been working on this project, I know that it had been a number of years since the original came out anyways. I wanted to talk about that. I also was into the Godfather series as well, both of these series to be honest. So it just so happened that this re-release that came out, maybe I believe it was about a month ago, just so happened to coincide with what I wanted to do. It's just kind of weird that happens, I guess. But anyways, how I'm going to be doing this is, first of all, I'll be breaking it down with the plot synopsis, a quick plot synopsis of each game, and then I'll be breaking down the gameplay, and then finally I'll give away my verdict on my choice of which is the best. And the reason why I want to do this is because each game is a little bit different, and of course you have Mafia having 3 separate titles, and you also have the Godfather series having just 2 separate titles, but then the 2 remakes. But it's important to kind of break all that down, talk about each of these different games, and so we can finally so we can get a somewhat of a decision here. I know everybody has played the majority of these games. I'm pretty sure people have. So let's talk about it. And by the way, I'm going to be going in which the year of release of each game. So we're going to be starting off with Mafia 1. And Mafia 1 is the original story of Tommy Angelo. Now, Tommy Angelo is a cabbie in the city of Lost Heaven, but one day he comes in contact with the violent Morello crime organization. He ends up getting help out from the Salieri organization. He ends up joining them as well, getting the blessing from the Don himself. And when he joins up with them, he eventually forms a crew with Paulie and Sam. And though they end up becoming his road dogs, they ride with him throughout all the missions and, of course, through the course of the story. And now, they are tasked with, helping out the Salieris in any way, contract hits, extortion, so on and so forth. But eventually the life does get to Tommy, and eventually he goes against the code in a couple different ways. For one, he's supposed to take out one of these high-rise luxury hotels. He ends up warning one of the females that work there, Michelle. She ends up being one of his friends to his wife. She explains to him some type of story with her brother. She lets him go. He lets her go. He wasn't supposed to. And then also there's a mission where he's supposed to track down the family's concierge, Frank Coletti. Now, Frank Coletti has been giving away information about, what the family has been doing, illegal activities to the federal investigators, and it's up to Tommy to take him out. But apparently, Coletti tells him this sob story, and Tommy kind of says, "Oh, I understand, I guess," and he lets him go. These are clear violations of what the family wants him to do. But again, Tommy, he's at a different point right now. He feels like he's understanding some things. He's also figuring out that. Don Salieri is putting them up for different heists or different. Well, there's a part of the game in which they're smuggling in some diamonds, real money, and the Don isn't trying to give him a cut. So he ends up following through with Paulie to rob this bank, but it all goes wrong because Paulie is killed, and they end up taking the money, and he has to end up in the end facing down Sam. Now, after the showdown with Sam, he gets whatever money he can, but he has to go to the authorities. And he ends up going to the authorities, serving his 8-year prison sentence. But in the end, he also is in protective, custody. But in the end, he's found out in the end. And, we all know the end of that. But moving on to The Godfather, this one is a kind of course, play-by-play of the movie, but of course there's the original character that you have to play through as Aldo Trapani. Basically how they tie him into the story is that they have him kill his father, then 9 years later he, becomes a member of the organization as an outsider. Then he makes his way up, becomes a made man, so on and so forth, and all becoming the Don. And this is also intertwined with the movie as well. And you end up basically, being a vehicle to carry the movie, meaning you are the person that places the horse head in Jack Woltz's bed. You are also the person that places the gun in the toilet for Michael Corleone to shoot the officer, and also Salazzo as well. You are also tasked with protecting the Don after he gets shot at the hospital. You actually have to take him there. You are also part of the baptism of fire as well. So again, pretty much you're playing through the movie, but there's also a lot of extra gameplay that they give you as well, in terms of extorting businesses, taking on rival families. Like I said, you are given the character. Well, you have to play throughout the game as the character Aldo Trapani, but he is all customizable via the mod face mechanic. You can customize him to look any way you want, dress him how you like, so on and so forth. Again, like I said, he has the name Aldo, but again, you can make him look like, well, you can't make a black dude, but again, you can customize him and make him as unique as possible. Something that a lot of these games don't really give you. And again, it's action packed. Again, basically plots from the movie. They do find ways to again get this rando non-canon character to be involved in it, but it works. And moving on to Godfather 2, basically the same thing. Pretty much a brief rundown of the second movie, if not a little bit even more remixed. This is the story of Dominic. Dominic is definitely a part, already made a made man within the Corleone crime organization. This character can be customized as well. Now, as far as Dominic goes, he's been already ingratiated, I feel, within the family. He already has had a role. They just put him in charge after the main character from the first game, Aldo, dies. So he's in charge of the New York operations, and he's up spreading those operations to Cuba and also, Florida, and then to Cuba as well. This is at the time of the communist regime taking over Cuba. So there's a lot of that friction going on. There's a lot of still fighting amongst different families, taking over a property, racket, so on and so forth. Nothing that much different from the first game, but again, it is based off the second movie, and maybe just even more, a little bit more remixed. But moving on to Mafia 2, Mafia is Mafia 2 is a story of Vito Scaletta, World War II veteran, recently coming home to Empire Bay, a much more broader city than Lost Heaven, encompassing many more people, encompassing many more different types of people. And he comes home to his sister, his mother, and his best friend Joey. Him and his best friend Joey have been pulling capers for a long time. Basically, that's what led to him getting, put in the war. Him and Joey had got caught up with a robbery, and instead of going to jail, originally he was sent into the war. So on return, he is tasked with, of course, trying to find some income. His father has left him in some massive debt, so he has to find work somewhere. Of course, he tries to go legit, but that doesn't work. So through, I believe his name was Derek Parpalardo, he is introduced to the Clemente family. The Clemente family is already familiar with his buddy Joey, so they kind of pull some capers for them. They eventually meet up with a guy named Henry Tomasino, who will come back in another part of the game, but eventually Vito is arrested again and is sent to prison for stealing gas stamps and selling them, but he meets up with a man named Leo Galante and becomes a fighter for him within the prison, taking out all the top fighters within the prison and avoiding dropping the soap himself. That game got really visual really quickly with that prison shit, but it was cool. But anyways, Vito is let out after 6 years. He goes back to work with the Falcone family, taking out various members of the Clemente mob, including an underboss as well as the Don himself, and they become made men, him and Joey at least. They also try to put on Harry. In order to put Harry on, he has to take out Leo Galante. Now, Leo Galante, like I said before, he is a consigliere. He was a consigliere for the Vinci family, which was a rival to the Falcone. However, Vito had that relationship with him in the joint. He helped him get out of jail, so it wasn't like he's just going to allow Harry just to shoot him. He warns Leo of the situation. Leo is able to get free, break out. But again, Henry is still allowed to be put on in the gang. But eventually, there's some beef between them and the Clementes, so that the Clementes send the Irish to bomb Vito's house. He's also out of some money, so they decide to make a big score by copping a loan and going to sell some heroin that they copped from the Triad. So they do all this. They're selling it out throughout the city. They're making their money. However, what they did not know was that their boss, Don Falcone, has been in the drug game as well, low-key. And when he finds out about this, of course, he demands his cut. And it puts these guys in a really difficult bind. So they have to figure out, how are we going to get how are we going to get the Don's cut as well as paying back this loan shark who is due at the end of the week. So they all meet up at the park. Well, yeah, that was the intention, to meet up at the park. But that being Joey and Vito discover your boy Henry just being hacked away by the Triads, and they could have just shot him, but they made it brutal and vicious, and they decided to hack him with meat cleavers, and he is left dead. It is then revealed to us that Henry was a rat, and the Triads were trying to, they had to handle him. And Joey and Vito, more so Joey in this situation, flying off the handle, decide to kill one of their enforcers. Now this causes a big rift. Joey is kidnapped, and Vito is able to get back his money, but he does not see Joey again. He is forced to meet up with Falcone at the planetarium with all the money, so on and so forth. But he has met up with Leo Galante, who warns him of the situation. He puts Vito on because, of course, this is a sally. He tells him that they have started a war, that being him and Joey. He is with the Triad leader, Mr. I think his name is Mr. Wu, or Mr. Wu. He is sitting there with him. It's time to go. He's kind of letting them know, it's on. Unless you take out Don Falcone, you can end this mob war now. And he ends up doing that. It's also revealed that Joey did want to switch up sides, but I guess he decided in the end that he didn't want to, and that Vito was his real friend, and they end up taking out your boy together, and they avoid the mob war, at least for now. everything you think, everything, on the surface seems to be okay. As you can see, your boy got a hole in his head. But this is a bittersweet ending because yes, they made it out. The mob war is, I guess, over. But Joey, he's taken away, and he's never seen or heard from again, leaving Vito in a diminished role. He's kind of taken aback at what has happened. You got Leo Galante in the end, kind of giving him some more game. Like, look, one of y'all is gonna have to go. Y'all caused too much drama. But anyways, off to Mafia 3. This is the story of Vietnam veteran Lincoln Clay. So you start to see the pattern of war veterans coming back into society in the Mafia series. But anyways, Lincoln Clay served in Vietnam. He is returning to the city of New Bordeaux, which is, basically New Orleans. And he is just coming by to visit his family one last time before he heads out to California to do something else in his life. But he realizes that his father, Black Sammy, who was the head of the Black Mob, is in some type of debt to the head mobster of the area, Sal Marconi, and he's also facing some problems with some Haitian crime groups as well. So he's tasked with helping his father out, and he also ends up, to get square with Marconi, he ends up pulling off a heist for him where they robbed the Federal Reserve Bank. And they end up stealing some plates out of there and some money, and we'll get to those plates in a little bit. And they return to Sammy's bar. A good, successful mission. And it's also, but the Marconi family, switches up on them, ends up killing everybody. Well, they don't end up killing Lincoln Clay, but they end up killing his brother. They also end up, like I said, they end up killing his father, burning down the bar. And they, again, Lincoln, for some reason, gets out of there alive. I don't know how they do it. They shoot him in the head. But, it's also important to note that this story is told in a documentary style. They use the POV of, for one of his friends, Pastor James Ballard. They also use excerpts from a committee meeting from another character by the name of Donovan. They also use excerpts from the lead investigator of him at the time, which was named, I think his name was James McGuire. So we also have to, I almost forgot to mention that. But anyways, Lincoln is then tasked with, he's not tasked with this, but he decides he's going to take out Marconi. He has to get that revenge. He has to take out his son Georgie. His son Georgie is the one that set him up, and he also finds out about the casino that Marcano wants to open. He wants to go legit, and Marcano is going to leave a lot of his old former associates out hanging and dry via probably telling on them or whatever, just not doing business with them. So what Clay decides to do is he's going to take out all his closest people, that being Marconi. He's going to start taking over his businesses, and he's going to recruit some other crime bosses throughout the community, throughout New Bordeaux. For one, he gets Cassandra, the lead Haitian boss. He also gets help from Thomas Burke, which is the father of Danny Burke, who was murdered after the heist. He was one of the people that helped out Lincoln and Georgie Marcano with the heist. And you also got Vito Scaletta. Yes, Vito Scaletta from Mafia 2 helping out as well. So they all come together, and they all have the same, feature of being fucked over by Marconi in some way. So they go, okay, well, we're together. We'll help you out. We'll take over these businesses. We'll help, maintain control of them. And, that's what they do. It's an all-out assault on Marconi. There's also a special connection between, of course, there is a connection between, somewhat of a connection between Lincoln and also your boy Vito, because they are both military guys. There's a little bit of a scene where they talk about that. And I also liked how they did bring Vito back. But anyways, long story short, your boy Lincoln leads one last final assault on the Hotel Paradiso. He goes up to the top floor. He takes out all the rest of Marconi's goons, and the player is given the choice of either taking out Marconi or allowing him to, off himself. At the end of the game, you are also given a different set of choices on how you want to end the game. You can either keep your drug empire intact and, of course, work with the Mafia via Leo Galante, who comes in town to kind of figure out what's going on. You have to reassure him, of course, oh, it's all good, I just wanted to get at Marconi. Oh, okay. So he gives you the opportunity to say, hey, we can maintain what we have here. You can, with your underbosses or whatever, you can also walk away. The story allows you to do that. You can actually walk away. They have a storyline, for just that occasion. If you decide to walk away and all that, there's a story where the FBI agent is kind of telling you, telling the player how Lincoln is avoiding authorities, how he's doing this and that. There's also, like I said, a story, an ending that occurs in which you decide to stay, and they'll have a story about that, about how he's flossing and spreading the money around. There's also an ending in which you can take out all your underbosses, and you can end up being dead yourself because the pastor will put a bomb under your car. Okay, so there's a couple different endings. There's a couple ways to play this game. So there's no, especially in the end, there's no right way. But let's move on to the gameplay. Starting off with Mafia 1. Mafia 1 was a really linear game, mission focused. Basically drive to one point, drive to the next point, get to the mission, start the mission, complete the mission, and then get to where you have to go to start another mission. That's pretty much the flow of the game. The missions themselves did vary in what you had to do in the beginning. The original mission is pretty much just driving around and learning the mechanics of driving in that game, because again, this game is really realistic in some ways, especially in terms of driving, the mechanics there, just kind of the physics and crashing, but also in terms of the police presence and just what they do. And a lot of these open world games, especially like a game like GTA, you can pretty much fly around any city, rob people's cars, and as long as a policeman isn't right there in front of you, he ain't gonna do too much to you. You probably just gonna get like a star. But in this type of game, you could be speeding and a police will actually blare you up, pull you over, want to ticket you. At some point they'll want to arrest you or shoot you. So it's a little bit of a progression in which they'll do based on what you're doing. But also like I said, it was very linear, just getting from one point to the next point. You can explore different areas, of course. You can kind of go around and everything, but and don't get me wrong, the area itself is pretty vast. It's not a small city. There's areas in which you can go all throughout the city, different districts. There's also an area of countryside in which you can go to. But again, it's a little slow. To me, especially in those first couple of missions, those first couple of driving missions, or maybe just the first one, it was just a little bit too slow for me. And I wish it would pick up at some points, but again, the story itself was good. As far as graphically, I think you have a game, of course this came out in 2002. I don't think the graphics were all that bad necessarily. I've never played the PC version. I've never done PC gaming outside of solitaire and stuff like actual online games. I've never done anything like this, played a game like this on a computer, on a PC. But I will say this: it looks better than the PS2 version. I think the Xbox version, if they do have one, will probably look a little bit crisper and cleaner. PS2 games, they always had a dark and grainy or grittier type of look. That's just kind of how those graphics came out in a lot of those games. I don't know how to really explain it, but that's just the way that it is. But a game like this, it looked decent. Another thing that I did have an issue with, as much as I liked the story itself, I thought the voice acting was on point. I just think the sound quality itself could have used a little bit of work. In some areas it sounded a little bit flat, it sounded a little bit hollow, but outside of that, if you're looking for a good engaging story, something to keep you, keep your hands on the controller actually engaged, going through the tediousness of the game itself just to get to those points, just to watch these cutscenes, this is a game that does that for you. I mean, there's not a whole lot outside of those cutscenes, but yeah. But let's move on to the Godfather. The Godfather, like I said, is just a a video game of the movie. You pretty much go through a lot of the scenes in the movie. You are you are able, as you progress through the city, to get little film reels of the movie. So it's like you're watching the movie as you play the game. You watch the movie. You know, but also outside of the mission, which again is pretty much the movie kind of, but of course remixed to fit this non-canon character. There's also stuff that you can do outside of this, like extortion. You can go to these businesses. You can beat up the owner, wreck his store, pressure him into giving you money, into paying your organization for for your services. That's a whole different aspect of the game. After you, and this is, you could do this while you play the game, but in order to complete the entire game, you have to, extort all these businesses. You have to go inside and go inside even, past, because all these businesses are fronts. So you have to get past the fronts, go buy the rackets, and so on and so forth. Then after you buy the rackets, you have to take out the warehouses where the rival families control. So you take out these warehouses, you get even more money, you take out their hubs. There's also a vendetta meter here. And what the vendetta meter is, well, this is the amount of hate that the rival families have for you. Of course, this is being based off the first movie. So you have the Cunios, the Barzinis, the Strachis, the Tatalias. There's a vendetta meter. When you get that meter up to a certain point, it's gonna start a mob war. So again, these are different aspects to the game here. You get to build up your character. In terms of XP, you get to buy different amounts of weapons, different levels of weapons. The Xbox 360, also the PS3 versions, the Black Hand Edition on the Wii allows you to carry a crew of up to 3 NPCs with you, so they can help you out in these missions. You have to take out the compounds of these families as well in order to complete the game. So there's a lot more than just storyline. There's a lot more than just beating the level or beating a level. Is a lot, and driving to that level. You need to take out a business along the way. You should be taking out a warehouse if you can along the way. Buying a weapon if you run into it along the way. You can bribe cops. Again, you can battle with other gangs. That's the point of this game. Is so much more than just the story itself. And again, this is pretty much a replica of New York City. You also get to travel to New Jersey. There's a couple, again, there's a lot going on with this map. I think it's a little bit bigger than Lost Heaven, than the Mafia game. So again, a lot more going on, a lot more gameplay value. Again, the story is not bad itself, because again, it's based off a good property. Your boy, Francis Ford Coppola, might have had his negative things to say about that first game. I think he said something about Italians shooting each other, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but long story short, if you look at the movie, that's pretty much what the movie was about. So I'm not too sure what his complaints was about, really. Anyways, moving on to Mafia 2. Mafia 2, again, like I said, is pretty much even more of a remix, although it is based off the second movie. Again, you are also, it's pretty much like the second game in the terms of you get a crew with you. This one you can carry 3. It's 3 NPCs that you can carry with you, and they carry out your biddings with you. They take out these businesses with you. Again, this is a little bit upgraded from the first game, because again, you have these rackets. There's a lot more. For one, again, you get to travel to Florida and Cuba, kind of do the same thing. And before I get to the rackets real quick, let me break down the crews and how this is different. You can recruit different members at any point in the game. You're not able to really do that with Godfather, the Black Hand editions, and the Don edition on the PS3, but in this one, you can recruit at any point in time, and they also come with different skill sets. For one, you can get a safecracker, you can get someone who's an arsonist or a demolitionist. You can also get somebody who can cut off communications, wires and stuff like that. But anyways, another good aspect about this game was the crime rings. When you take over a certain amount of businesses that are related to each other, like for example, you take over diamond smuggling businesses. Once you take over all those, you get an upgrade, such as armored vehicles. When you take over all the, I believe it's the poison, or sorry, I think it's the prostitution ring, you get some type of upgrade in terms of your guns. However, if you lose one of these businesses, of course, you lose the upgrade. And, this is another good part about the game, because all these different businesses have their varying degree of difficulty to take down. These rival families might put up to maybe 20 people guarding it. You got to take them out. And another thing is, you get to actually protect these businesses as well. You have to actually, because again, you could take over a business and they'll come back and take it and try to take it back if you're not protecting it. They'll try to, and again, if you have a ring, if you have a crime ring, like say for instance, you have your brass knuckle upgrade. If you lose one of those businesses related to that, you lose that upgrade. So again, it's best that you stay on top of it. It's one of those games that it gives you a lot. You, like I said, going to these different, places, these different locales. Like I said, Cuba. There's a couple missions you have to go there. Now, you get to rob banks again. So there's a lot of variety in what you can do in the Godfather games. Period. That's one thing. I mean, again, a lot of people kind of put down the second game, but there's a lot of shit you can do in it. But anyways, moving on to Mafia 2. Mafia 2 is similar to, of course, Mafia 1 in the sense that it is very story driven. The story is what drives the game. There's not a whole lot of stuff you can do in between time. There's little bits and pieces in which you can get extra money. I believe there's this guy that runs this chop shop named Brewski. You can get cars and kind of bring them to him and get a little bit of extra dough. Of course, I believe you can rob banks a little bit, do a little bit of thing, but little bit of stuff, but nothing as vast in what you can do in the Godfather games. But one thing that I did love about this game was the graphics. I remember first getting my hands on this game, and I remember the first parts when Vito first got back to Empire Bay, and it's the winter time, and the way that they had it, just that engine, I guess, on the PS3 made those graphics look so beautiful. The snow was glistening, all that. So again, this game had a lot to offer in terms of graphics. Very beautiful game in terms of graphic wise. Again, another strong story here. There's some similarities with the first game, of course, with the main character saying, I'll just do my own thing, kind of blah blah blah. But again, personally, with just the way that Empire Bay was mapped out, the way that they made it look, it really looks like one of those East Coast cities. It's pretty spread out for what it is. Again, you still have the same type of dynamics in which if you're speeding, a cop will get you. There's the wanted system, in which you can they'll start off by just wanting to arrest you. Eventually, they'll just send machine guns. They'll start busting at you. So again, and the game itself progresses at a pretty high rate. Again, in terms of the story, it lets you, it shows Vito going to prison, and instead of just kind of, giving you some type of cut scene and just kind of showing him be released, it kind of shows you his experience in jail. So you get to play through that. You also get to see various different aspects of the city, including the different people. You get to interact, again, with the triads. You never, you don't see too much of that in those mob games too much. So again, a lot to do in this game. Well, the story within the story, there's a lot to do. That's what I'll say here. As far as Mafia 3 is concerned, same get up here. Very, the story in itself is what drives the game. Just like, with all these games in reality here, the story is the essential thing. There's so much going on within that story, so many twists and turns. But again, I think in terms of what you can do here, they do upgrade some of your open world capabilities in terms of how you go about taking over these businesses. In terms of you recruiting, you can actually take over these businesses and you can give them to one of these underbosses. Again, you're working with Cassandra, you're working with Vito, and again, there's a balance that you do have to keep here. What I mean by that is when you take over a business or when you unlock a district, you give that control over to one of your underbosses. If you're spreading it out evenly, keeping those underbosses happy, it'll all be good. However, if you slight one of them by giving one of them more territory, then they'll start to really not fuck with you, and they'll come after you. You will have to take out one of your underbosses. And I think that's a different aspect of the game. You can also protect these businesses with different upgrades, weapon upgrades. Again, very still linear. They kind of upgraded, I think, in a lot of different. Well, the game itself is probably the best looking of the three. But again, so much. I mean, these games are kind of limited outside of the story. I will say that, but the stories themselves, I personally thought the story was engaging, although in different ways it kind of jumped the shark, so to speak, too. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I just kind of felt like they kind of jumped the shark in this game. But again, I like the cars. I like how the physics looked in the game graphically. Yeah. This game probably, of course, is the best looking game. You can say what you want. There's some glitches, of course, but I mean, I have to be a fool to tell you that this game is not the best looking game graphically. The soundtrack is pretty good too. There's a good mixture of some 60s rock, some funk, all that. Mafia has been trying to do that for a while now. Just kind of because the second game, they had a little bit of a soundtrack too. They had some 40s and some swing music. So again, you got a little something from that. They trying to, they try to upgrade it as much as possible. But with that being said, it's time to come to my final verdict. Now, I've come to this point after I played all these games. I cannot sit there and say a series is better. Like the whole Mafia series is better than the whole Godfather series. The Godfather series is completely better than the Mafia. I can't say that. But I will say the best title out of all these games has got to be The Godfather. The original is pretty good if you want to cash out and get the upgraded Don's edition, which is still available out there. If you want to, take a chance on it, it's still available. It's a little bit more expensive. And again, I don't know who else has a PS2 lying around. And again, I don't know who has a PS3 anymore. But if you want to take a chance on it, I'd do it. Don't get me wrong. I know for a fact that graphically, and it just how game physics work. Mafia 3 is of course superior in a way, just because it's newer. But like I said before, that story in a lot of different ways jumped the shark. There were some things even gameplay wise that didn't work with that. But I love Godfather. Just what you can do in terms of taking over these businesses. Also, I like Mafia 2. Mafia 2 in terms of the Mafia games, had the very best storyline. In my opinion, it did look really good graphically too. This game looked really graphically too, and I loved how the story progressed. I loved the drama in it. I loved the twists and turns in it. Of course, it being an original story, it gives it, a plus in my opinion over The Godfather. It does. It does in that regard. But again, it is restricted to that storyline, as good as it is. And then you have the DLC for it. Jimmy's Adventures, I believe it was called, and I think it's Jimmy's Betrayal and Joey's Adventures, which kind of take away. I think they're just almost completely different games. The Godfather gives you a whole lot of shit to do within one setting. Of course, after you finish the missions, you go throughout the city taking over businesses. You take over the warehouses. You fight through mob wars. You might piss off the police and have to, pay off somebody, pay off a G-man, which is a federal guy, whatever. Just a whole lot going on in this one. A whole lot more, in my opinion. Way more bang for your buck. But again, Mafia 2 had a great but there's case you can I'll say this, there's case you can make for each game. Mafia, the original Mafia had a great storyline. Mafia 3 looked the most pleasing. Even Godfather 2 had a great, almost what you would call what's the word here that I want to say? Arcade type of feeling, how you could get at people. Oh, and Mafia 2 gave you the cover system, which allowed you to pick your personal spots hiding behind cover. Gotta give it that too. But personally, my favorite is gonna be the Godfather, particularly either or the Don's edition or the original. Both a tie for me. Both pretty much the same thing. I love it. All right, I'm gonna call it a wrap for today. As far as what else I got going on, I do want to get into these NBA finals. I've been spending a few days working on this, so I've gotten a little bit behind. The NFL, we'll just have to wait. I'll talk about week 2 tomorrow. Week 4 tomorrow. Also going over Monday Night Football as well. So I'll have that tomorrow night. So I'll put this out later on today. Also, like I said, my podcast, that'll be tomorrow too, starting off with that. I am going to be talking about the debate as well at some point. So just bear with me. I'm trying to do my thing here. Sorry, y'all. This took so long. But it's worth it for one. But then there's a lot of technical stuff that I had to go through too. So my bad, y'all. But I'll leave all my links available for you guys. Peace out. One love, you guys. I'll holler at you later.